Hi, hello everyone. We are now in the fifth week of my .NET Weekly journey. So we are always trying to explore many features of .NET. Right now, we have in the fifth week. Fifth week is uh, meaning that I'm more than a month having this series, and I'm grateful that I can keep up with this weekly quite regular. So now we are going to discuss more detail about .NET. We have discussed TFM. We have discussed the overview of the SDK, of course. So overview of SDK first, then we discuss in detail the TFM with the specific version and operating system, also with the relation between TFM and the templates that you have if you have by default, install the .NET SDK and you type the .NET new list. So those lists, although you cannot see directly what's going on and whether you are going to ensure that you understand the operating system behind it. I already given you some samples that one of the things or the quick way to understand is by looking at the content of the CS project directly or the other programming language that is supported by .NET SDK. I'm saying the language supported by .NET SDK, not the other way around. So the SDK comes first, then the infrastructure of the compilation, the environment, and the tooling comes first. Then on the tooling, you will see that you compile the code. So let's go back to the plan that we have. We have discussed the core technologies. So I have demoed to you using VS Code, and I have the target, the template, TFM of course. There is also a nice intro that I have provided you with the CS props. And also last week we have a F sharp to display a basic WinForms. Again, you can create WinForms using F sharp. Although if you type the .NET list, .NET new list, you don't have that by default. I know that some people may say I am not trying to use F sharp for desktop app, for example, but you can. So why why do I say this? Because that language, especially these three, C sharp, F sharp, and Visual Basic, can have that. What I'm trying to say is WinForms WPF is not tied to in any specific language. But if you follow my previous video, you'll see that it is not obvious in the beginning. This is why it is not easy to separate those template choices of the TFM with the kinds of programming language are you going to use. And this brings us to know that, okay, I'm going to open the previous project that we have discussed before. So previously I used Visual Studio. I should remind you that you can also use Visual Studio Community Edition as long as it is Visual Studio 2022. And I suggest that you keep update your Visual Studio installation version. Right now we are using 17.10, like we have here on the initial page. When you new, I'm using general settings here, so you may be different. Okay, I'm opening the repo now. Have this one. Since I only have one solution here, so that solution will be opened directly. I will update this and commit this. Okay, so as a recap, we see that any project created by .NET SDK can be opened directly, like this one. So I can use mouse wheel, really? Hmm, Oh, cool. I'm not going to use this one. So, okay, we have sample bin forms using C# and F#, which is this is a nice segue to discuss this week about the project system. How how is .NET Core is like this? We have a .NET Core here, and also again, Microsoft is known for compatibility bar, having high compatibility. We have here is a solution with many projects. I see here GitHub Action. This is new to me. What is this? Open in github.com. Overflow settings. Okay. This is not related to .NET SDK at all, but I may have something to tell you about GitHub Action. I have used for a while, but honestly, I never see that this is there is a GitHub Action here. So I think this is the nice thing about having journey format like we have here in this video series. So we find new things as we are going, as we are using it. So we learn it along the way. Okay, we are now discussing the project. Let's go back to the slide. We are here, introduction to project system. And let's run it. Yeah, we are here in project system. Yeah, it is part of the .NET SDK, including all of the runtime, BCL, and the toolings. Of course, the toolings by default includes MS Build. And one thing for sure is this project system. So the project system is actually implementation of Visual Studio extensibility models, and it's been available widely since .NET Framework 1.0. Again, since .NET Framework 1.0, and it's also compatible with the older workspace model of older version before Visual Studio 2002. Like you can still, see that it is compatible. At that time, it is compatible in a sense that they are using the same project model, but this project model is actually different in some way. I'll tell you later. This part of the project system is actually implementation that is part of the Visual Studio SDK. So Visual Studio has its own SDK, I'm not writing it here, but basically, this Visual Studio SDK gives you the power to do anything on top of Visual Studio, like having your own project system, having your own um, language support. Let's say if you have another language that is not part of the basic or default installation of Visual Studio, you can do your own homework, to extend Visual Studio. But you have to implement your project system first. Then wire that project system with the language support, including, if I say language support, that it should also include the compilers and of course the interpreter. And then how are you going to tell Visual Studio which menu or which action, if you want to compile, if you want to debug, if you want to run it, and if you want to do debugging, Visual Studio SDK provide you the debugging support. Of course, that debugging support, it has to obey Visual Studio SDK rule, but you can still extend that default behavior. So no worries. But again, it is not part of this discussion. Uh, let's go back to the project system. Project system has its own information or manifest to tell Visual Studio how to treat the project from the beginning, when the project is registered, open, and many more. Registers in a sense that this is only happen at the first time you register the type of the project after you finish implementing your project system, and then that binary that you have developed has to tell Visual Studio when it's open what's going on, and many more. Why I emphasize on when it is open. You'll see that if I open some files within WinForms, it will by default open the designer window or designer form. That is the capability of the WinForms project system. It tells Visual Studio, okay, you are not just opening the code, but by default, if you see some patterns like, uh, I will go back to Visual Studio. If you see some patterns like this, there is a form and it has designers and ResX. You open this by default if you double click in a designer. So why is the designer? I think it's already open. Don't know why. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, designer is already open. Yeah, we have here. It's already open. So if I double click it, yeah. Of course, it is taking some time because the designer for .NET is different. Is out of process because this is not the .NET framework, but it tries to communicate back and forth between the designer in the .NET framework with the .NET Core. So you'll see. Let's go back to the source code of this guy. It has no definition how to treat this form 1.cs with REST like designer and REST. But you see that we have here is use WinForms equals to true. Then it tries to load the capabilities of WinForms project system to understand this guy, this form 1. You see that there is also use WinForms in F#, but it does not know how to treat let's say if you have form1.fs, for example, because F sharp again doesn't have the support for designer window or design window like we have here in C sharp. So that is the difference. And this is becoming more and more important if you have basic understanding on what's going on within these types of project. It also proves that, like I already told you before in the previous video, it's hard to separate between how you are going to create your project and the decision of how are you going to use which programming language. C Sharp and VB has a long history that it can support designing any WinForms and WPF, but F Sharp do not have that kind of features or capabilities. It is, yeah, it may be a little bit annoying at first, but you have to understand that each language has its own history. Each language has its own differentiator, or uh, the term for that is it tries to compete in a nice way, that you have your own thinking on initially when you are creating a new app. What are you going to create, and are you going to use certain style? Like F sharp is basically functional by default, functional in style, not truly functional or truly pure functional language like Haskell or whatever. But why it is like that? Because it has to be able to run nicely on top of .NET CLR, and the implication of has to run nicely on top of .NET CLR, meaning that it has to be able to support all of the common language runtime, including the type system and so on, so on, so on the CLR. But at the same time, since F sharp comes later after C sharp and VB, it also has to be able to support the existing programming language on .NET. That includes the oldest one, VB, and then the youngest one after VB is the younger one after VB is C sharp. So this also means that all of the infrastructure that is provided within the language support, like this we have here, the project system, this has to be designed or implemented nicely, and as you see here, we don't have any kinds of complex CS process that contains all of the inclusion of the files. Okay, let's go back to the slide here. So we current slide. Okay, save F5. I should remember this. Yeah, it has its own information manifest. So there is a repo that contains all of these detail or more technical information about this Visual Studio project system, and I have given you the link here. GitHub.com. If you click, yeah, you will go to this repo. I've already opened it. Here we have a documentation. So let's go back to the slide. And then nice thing about the project system of .NET Core is using Visual Studio CPS. CPS is the technology that comes since I should update this slide. That comes since 2015, and it is better in a sense that you'll see that I can directly edit the project file, and I could see that that project file doesn't have any clutter of include this file, this file, this file, this file, this file, like we have in the old .NET framework. And it is also an extension of CPS Core. The capability of not including all of those files is included as part of this CPS Core. So CPS Core is basically a new extension of the existing Visual Studio Project system actually. And let's go to the next slide. So we have here is the MS build as the basic tooling to understand all of those project files. And on top of it is CPS Core. We have item management, snapshot, and Direct Core is using Visual Studio CPS VS or Visual Studio CPS. It has a way to to have your own property window and the tree surface, the build, F5, and many things. This architectural layer view is actually a simplified version. Maybe I should create a detailed one on the next video. But basically, CPS Core is the newer model, and Direct Core is using this guy, CPS VS. The next one. So why we are using CPS? CPS in a sense is based on the CPS Core first. It has or it is using clubbing by default. Therefore, files inside the same folder of the project files are added by default. There is an exception, like those files under bin and obj folders are not added by default. It is also free from direct relation to COM-based project. This COM-based project is already been available since the version before 2002 actually, and in 2002 itself it's still available only for .NET framework in the initial version. But there is a some advancement or update that since 2015, because CPS Core is available since 2015, and this provide the basic segue. I actually in the initial version I don't think it is available on the first version of 2015, because at that time the .NET Core 1.0 is not available directly on top of Visual Studio 2015 when it is first released. So I may have to dig down further what's going on the actual history. But yeah, we now can tell that it only supported by MS Build. And this MS Build is not the same MS Build as we have in the initial version of .NET, like 2002. And this advanced version of MS Build is released since 2015. And also this marked the beginning of opening the source code of this guy, this MS Build. But yeah, we could discuss this later. It is compatible with the older project system, of course, but some XML element or text are obsoleted. And of course, some of them may or may not work anymore and will not work anymore, of course, on the newer releases of Visual Studio and .NET SDK. I should mention this that the last point is only valid for any kinds of .NET Core or .NET SDK project. So, but Microsoft still have the capability or the only party that can deprecate or obsolete some things, of course. We'll see on the next version after 2022. The next one, yeah, this is the storage contact I mentioned before. Before .NET Core 2.0, 1.0 and 1.1 is using JSON project. This use of JSON project in the project as the project system was great, but there are many problems occurred. Again, if you see that the initial idea of Visual Studio project system is using XML, therefore, this JSON project cannot really coexist with the existing project system because you have to add additional layers to provide the tooling support. And therefore, it is also harder to understand and to maintain. If you come from the person that initially learned .NET 1.0, .NET Core 1.0 as the initial thing that you learn, you may be happy to use it. But if you come from like me, I'm coming from the .NET Framework world. I'm coming from the .NET Framework universe, and this is starting to give me some, bitter taste or not so good aftertaste because to me it's hard to maintain as we have a JSON files, and also it's hard to understand what's going on because due to the flexibility of that JSON file, someone or some tools may update that JSON in a not standard way because we see that JSON always having a historical problem of serializing and deserializing. So again, it's hard to reason about that. So since .NET Core 2.0, the project system is using Visual Studio CPS on top of the existing Visual Studio legacy project system. It's actually on top of the CPS Core, which is on top of the actual legacy project system that comes since .NET Framework 1.0. But it is not using all of the capabilities that comes from .NET Framework 1.0. Okay, next one is the demo. I'll show you why. Let's go back to the Visual Studio. So in here, I'm going to demo you first the globbing. Let's say I'm going to add new class in this project. Make it a, I'm going to get a class, animal class, animal, add. Now I have a class animal and it is added directly. But if you go back to the source code of the project, this animal.cs it is not added. You see, the CSS is still clean. So this is by default, it is called globbing. And if I want to go back to the initial behavior of .NET Framework project, there is a tag or XML element for that. And it is, if I'm not mistaken, enable default compile items for globs for source files. Okay. Let's see. There is a two option, true and false. Let's try to set it as false. And save it. And see, so all of the CS files are not included by default. You see, now I can only see the RESEC, the resource files. I don't see the CS. So if I go back and set this to true, then I will see those from 1.cs and the program.cs back to me again. And now you see the globbing in action by default. You may wonder, is it important to me? It is important if you want to migrate your existing WinForms project to that use .NET Framework to use .NET Core since .NET 5 especially. Why? You have to keep those files nicely, or you may want to delete some files. You can, of course, you just set this to true or delete these lines of code by default. All of this CS is added, but there are some files that comes in the .NET Framework, and this WinForm projection does not know how to handle it. And as far as I know, it will display that file as is. So I don't know, but if I'm not mistaken, it will include that file in this project system. Let's try something. Let's try to add new items. I think a good sample for that is this data. So data set, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, data set. I am going to create a data set. Let's make it a sample data set. So I'm not going to connect to any database at all, just to give you quick sample that some files will be included in this project file by default. So let's just add it. Yeah, I could start adding some things like, okay, opening toolbox. Where's the toolbox? Okay, this one. Yeah, going to add a one data table. Let's try to add column. Another column one, data column two. Add new one. Let's make it PK column one or PK column, and make this as primary key. Okay, set this to be having a type as integer 32, and save it. Let's see the source code of WinForms X0. There you are. You see that some files has to be included explicitly, like we have here. Some files are grouped inside item group. So we have sample dataset.xsd, we have dataset designer.cs, and dataset dot designer is also has its own trees of hierarchies, meaning that this SSC and XSS is grouped inside the designer. Inside the SSD. So now you see that some files are not treated like to be included by default. And I think this is normal because this SSD has different meaning as .cs or .vbo or .fs, because by default all those files are considered as source files, including the form with the group of designer and RASIC, because these are the source files. Program.cs is also source files, and SSD is not considered as the default source files by default. There you are. You'll now see that clubbing in action. Now that you see that this is important, and this is available since CPS Core, and there is a way that should tell Visual Studio when it tries to open this file by default. What should I do to treat this file? You'll see that the all of those projects created in the .NET SDK has this first line project SDK equals to Microsoft.NET.SDK. This is the initial minimum distribution of SDK. At least you have this as the .NET SDK. All other kinds of project template may have its own SDK, but as far as I know, they are also based on this Microsoft.NET SDK, like we have here in the web project or ASP.NET Core project. There is a Microsoft.NET SDK web. If you have this as part of the SDK, it means that you will have a way to reference some binaries inside the ASP.NET Core binaries by default, meaning that you will have a Microsoft.extension something something by default. Like you see, okay, let me see, there is a dependency. Yes. Yeah, you see that, yeah, by having or set this thing SDK web, you will have this ASP.NET Core app framework inside your project, not just here. Console or other things always have this NetCore app. You see that the console is always having this. I have more than one TFM in the sample. So I open the framework, see NetCore app. And it is still the same as those in the Net 6.0. Net 6.0 still have this NetCore app. Same. Let's see if we open the WinForms. WinForms, you see that it still have this same Net SDK. But if you look at the dependencies, the framework element or frameworks, yeah, you see that it has specified, it has frameworks of Microsoft.Windows Desktop.app.winforms, not just NetCore app. So you may wonder, why is this so complex? Because this is .NET SDK that it has its own way to to wire up those references, those class libraries, and this uh, Windows Desktop app WinForms is available for you if you use WinForms, use Windows Forms set to true. Why? You may wonder, okay, this is typed as a C# or VB that has designer support. No, AppSars also has this by default. So you'll see that since I use Windows Forms, AppSars has this Microsoft Windows Desktop app dot Windows. So use Windows Forms will give you this. And just to prove my point, I will add use WPF here, and it will add a new framework element. I think it's a framework element. Framework element to Microsoft.Windows.app.wpf. So let's use WPF to true, and just like this. You'll see that ah, it is just changing the reference to Windows Desktop app, not just WinForms anymore. So okay, I need to dig down on the further on this one. Yeah, but you'll see if I'm just using console without any reference to these frameworks, and I know that you have to do that implicitly, like you add this use WinForms or use Windows Forms and use WPF. By adding this, you will have these guys included as part of your project compilation. So you are not just compiling the source files, but also you compile the project file. And the tool that compile that is MS-Build. Compile this project file is MS-Build. But you have to tell MS-Build the behavior, what happened when you compile these project files. This is why project system is a very, very complex concept actually. But at the same time, you have these powerful features like clubbing and how to wire up those things. And also, again, you have to pay attention. If you, let's say, start to migrate .NET Framework into .NET Core, I suggest to regenerate your dataset in the uh, dataset designer in the .NET Core. Why this is important? Because I'll show you why. In the CS, you'll see that some of the on the CS of the dataset, you'll see that some of the tooling has version dependent tool or binaries. Let me show you. Let's go back to this dataset here. Okay, and if I double click this, there is a compiler warning, but we could ignore this for now. And you see the system.code.dump.compiler.generated code attribute is using this guy type dataset generator with this version 17.0.0.0. This 17.0.0.0 is the one that is used by Visual Studio 2022. Why it is marking this by default to 17.0? Because I'm using Visual Studio 2022. This is version 17. And usually the major version of the tooling is always in line or synchronized with the Visual Studio version. This is why I have version 17.0 or starting with the version major of version 17. Hopefully this will give you good sample of why the versioning, the tooling, because if you know the tooling, you'll know the version. And you'll see that this tooling is also important and it is part of the .NET SDK itself to give you a very powerful way to operate with the project system. And you don't have to pay attention anymore to basic source code support. Like you see that all of the programs that yes. But at the same time, you may have to what's the term for that? Explicitly exclude some files. Let's say I have here animal.cs, and then I'm going to decide, okay, this file should not be included as part of the compilation. Let me save the. Oh, okay. It's already been saved. And let me try to exclude this and see what happened. I should make this as a uh, group or something. Is there a way to do this? Uh, there you are. Vertical document group. Let's click on other files and let's try to exclude this animal.js. Exclude from project. Yeah. So explicit exclusion of the project will add this element or tag item group, compile remove animal.js item group, the closing item group. So this inclusion doesn't mean that it is deleted physically. I'll show you why. So this one is, I'll just use show all files here, and you'll see that animal.js is still there. And all of those compilations like bin and obj will not be included by default because you should not care about these folders. Like bin is always having the compilation result. The obj is the temporary or intermediate compilation result. After this obj is done, it's usually compiled and put into the bin. So I'll so turn off this again. So all files. Yeah, there you are. Now you have the basic idea of this project. So you may wonder why the detail of the reasoning about going back to the old project system. I mentioned about the old is not really old actually because this project system is actually newer than the old project system used by .NET Framework. There is a website that discuss this. I'll try to include the link on the video description. So this guy has a nice way to describe. So in .NET Core 1.0 and 1.1 is in the genome code.dev evolution of .NET project. The primary file format was used. However, it was replaced by CS Project. This is slightly incorrect. It doesn't replace the CS Project. So what I'm trying to say is it was replaced by the old project system when .NET Core 2.0 came out. So the reasons or key factors that drove the decision is compatibility with ecosystem concerns and the tooling support. Like I mentioned before, it's hard to maintain the project.json and standardization. So transition back to the Salesforce or project system was also aimed at standardizing the project file format across different .NET projects. This made it easier for developers to work with different types of .NET projects and contributed to a more consistent development experience. Can we still project.json today? No. And I think this is a good thing. And honestly, uh, I have tried to learn .NET Core since .NET Core 1.1, and I have my own impression of, I'm disappointed because it's hard to maintain also for me. Uh, I comes from .NET Framework world, and .NET Framework world itself, it's also have its own, disadvantage of maintaining those CS prods, VB prods, and also FS prods. But at the same time, it's been there for more than 8 years. At the time, the .NET Core is developed. It's been there. I think so since 2002. Yeah, and no. 2002 is the release one. So it's been there since 2000, and then 2002 the initial release of the .NET Core 1.0. Yeah, it's been more than 8 years, 10 years maybe. Yeah. So in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, that is the first initial ideas of the .NET Core is being discussed, and then they start to develop .NET Core in I think in 2012. Yeah. So there is a quite a long way. Yeah, more than 20 years since .NET Framework that .NET Core is starting to make sense. Of course, the some ideas are coming from the ideas of having a mono. Mono is basically .NET Framework port to non-Windows operating system like Linux, Android, and macOS, for example. You have Mono. Then you have a Xamarin on top of Mono if you want to develop for Android and iOS. And now we have .NET Core with MAUI, which is in some sense it may be easier to develop because we all know that Xamarin has been acquired by Microsoft, and those developer teams also part of the larger ecosystem of .NET Core teams, and we now have a more integrated way to see the whole picture of .NET itself, starting from um, no desktop and no basic UI capabilities at all. You now have desktop capabilities. Now that we have here, let's say that this project.json is not available anymore. We could ignore this for now. But if you had some experience using project.json, I'd like to know why. And I'd also like to know, are you going to migrate it or keep it as is or just only copy the source code? As far as I know, migration from project.json to the project system is not that easy. It's easier to migrate the .NET Framework project to .NET Core, but yeah, it is also a little bit ironic that migrating project.json to to the CS Proj or VB Proj is much more harder to do. So let's ignore this. I only give this as a historical background why we are not using project.json anymore. Okay, let's go back to the project system documentation here in the GitHub repo. So we have the nice overview and many things here. Project capabilities, dynamic capabilities. By default, all of the project system has to derive from IVS project object. It's basically an interface, and you can have a configuration. You you know that I mentioned about properties in the picture. So let me go back to the doc index and let's go to the okay, where is it? Overview. We have here CPS VS has support for properties. These properties is easy to see or to learn if you look inside Visual Studio. Um, okay, I can do this and right click go to the properties. So this is the properties. Okay, let me new vertical document group. I'm going to where is it? Where is it? Just close this. Close. Close. Get this. Close this. Close. Okay, I just make this. Close others. Yeah. Why? Close other tabs. Come on. Close other tabs. So close other tabs. It is not working. Is this a bug? I just open this. Properties. Close other tabs. Okay. Now this is the properties of this project, and we have here a nice interface. I have to tell you that we don't have this nice interface in the Visual Studio 2017. I don't have Visual Studio 2017 in this machine, but we don't have this because back in the Visual Studio 2017, the interface is not like this, and it goes this by displaying the old properties of more like a .NET Framework style. I think this property is also available in 2019. I think I have 2019 in this machine. So let me open 2019. I was going to install 2017, but I don't have enough storage, honestly. So, and also it is starting to look very old to me. So I'm just focusing on both 2019 and 2022. License is still there. Okay. Check for an updated license. There you are. So now open the old one. Okay, not this one. Okay, these SLN are coming from 2022 settings. So I maybe just create a new solution for now. Blank solution. No, I'm not going to use this. I'm going to use my local. Okay, let's just use this one. Create new folder here. And just make it VS 2019. Sample codes for now. There you are. I'm going to use this folder. Let's name it sample codes of Visual Studio 2019. Great. Looks like that new property page or property design page is available since 2019, but let's see. I'm going to create new project. Project type is console. .NET Core, C#. Let's make it sample console 01. We have here 5.0 is out of support. Never mind, just use this. So I'm going to create a NET 5.0 project. And you'll see that we have a same look of framework elements, NET Core app here. Because this framework element is introduced since NET 5.0. And let's look at the properties. Okay, so it is not yet having the nice new look of project design properties. This is the old visualization of .NET Framework. Only it support the newer target framework model like we have here. And you can also install other framework, but I don't know. I've tried this before. Sometimes it shows here, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm not going to try on this one. Now let's compare this guy with the newer one. You'll see it is totally different and it is cleaner. So let's try to make this. Where's this? This is on the. Okay, let's make it. The old one is on should be on the left. Where I don't see it. that. Okay, let's make this on the right. And you see the difference is somehow very, very nice to have this in 2022. So you may say, okay, what is the proof of why do you say this is more like the old model? Okay, I can show you. Let's say I create a new .NET project in this solution inside Visual Studio 2019. New project, use console, and I choose C# for .NET Framework. Sample C#, make it .NET-FX 01. And if I right click and then properties here. Oh no, not this one. Should be the .NET Framework. You see, the look is similar because the idea of the property designer of that project goes back to the old .NET Framework. And if you want to know what's going on exactly, or if you, let's say, want to do some very, very hardcore things like creating your own project system, you can do that. You can visit here. Let's go back to the documentation or the. Okay, I'll look in the landing page of this repo. There is a something like no, not in this one. Okay. Oh yeah, they are using MPF. Samples. Let's go back to doc first. There should be a way. There was a link to that samples. Let's go back to the introduction. Please visit our overview page. So this is the overview page. CPS. So the CPS VS is using Visual Studio package. There is a something about VC or VS package, if I'm not mistaken. And this package will also contains all of the interfaces and the binary that provide the project system, and yeah, also these assemblies or DLL like Visual Studio Project System.vs, Visual Studio Project System.vs implementation. Yeah, this is different from the CPS Core. You can learn more in this very heavy document here. Okay, where do I get that samples? This is the overview. Let's go back to the overview. Project capabilities. Yeah, you can have information about the breaking change from Visual Studio 2017 and then 2019. You'll see that there is a comparison between 2013 and 2015. But let's go back to the index of this stock, index MD. Okay, prerequisites, data flow, study model, behavioral difference, breaking change. How do I provide custom icons? So this is not the only documentation actually. So there is also this one. It's called Visual Studio SDK documentation. And we have a very large documentation here. And you'll see that hierarchies and samples. Oh yeah, you have samples, a nice samples way. But actually, the best samples that you can have is yeah, reference implementation. So this is part of the overview folder. This is the C# VB F# project system is the source code of project system for those three languages. Open a new tab. You'll see that .NET/project system. Yeah, they still accepting contributions actually. You are free to create your own PR. And this is very large and very complex. You'll see that you have a nice way to, you know, create a project system. To build this, you need a .NET Desktop build and so on. But this Markdown, I'm afraid, is slightly outdated because the workload display is not like this anymore. I think this is the display for 2019, I believe, not for 2022. Yeah, you need the extension development. This will install Visual Studio SDK by default. Yeah, this is the larger one and the most complex one. There is easier sample, new project, but I'm afraid this project is not active anymore. It was created by Imo Landward, part of the .NET Core team. But it should give you the basic idea of implementing your own project system. Oh, let's go back to the Visual Studio. I think last week I mentioned something about how that If you click on this net core, you can see directly the source code, and this you cannot, because again the differentiation start from the first line of this guy. This project, it has a way to tell MS Build that you should use the SDK for Netcore, and for the Net Framework project. Let me just close other tabs. I don't have closed all the tabs. I just close all tabs. And if you unload this first, then you will see the source code of the CS project. And as we have discussed before, okay, I need to make this line plus. All of the source code are included, and it has to be defined explicitly. Compile, include, compile, include. You will still see this compile, include in the newer SDK project, right? As you see in this uh, in the WinForms that has the dataset. There's a oh no, sorry, you still have the compile update. You can still have the compile include actually, and it integrates nicely with the globbing. But again, as I already mentioned to you, that if you enable globbing by default, like this project I have, any CS inclusion will always be included by default unless you explicitly tell the project system to remove, like I make this animal to be removed, not part of the compilation of this project, for example. Now you have the basic idea of CS project. And then let's try to make initial conclusion about this discussion. It is not easy again to. Okay, let's go back to this. It's not easy to separate the choice of the templates technology, like you are targeting to, like either you are targeting the web, desktop, console, whatever, with the language. This is why all those are closely linked, I'm afraid. Honestly, I don't know the simpler way to explain this, but yeah, we are now living in a different world. Some parts are easier to understand, some parts are difficult to understand. Especially, you have to face the fact that .NET Core is meant to be implemented in a cross-platform world, with the exception of those two, like WinForms and WPF. Those are comes from Windows world, and it is still in Windows. So they are specific for Windows. Other things like console, ASP.NET Web, and Blazor, you have the guarantee that by default it is cross-platform, unless if you, let's say, if you want to develop your ASP.NET Core, you want to leverage your existing knowledge about having IIS to serve your web app, you can still do that. But I'm going to discuss this on a later videos after this, because we are still touching the internals of that toolings. So the next video is I'm going to present you, and hopefully I could still run my WSL here on top of Ubuntu, and I may have to update my .NET SDK to .NET 8, because my version looks like still a bit outdated. So Ubuntu I have here, but I think it is still updated, not yet uh, correct version. Yeah, let's see. Do I have it? This I don't know. I forgot. Yeah, it's still using 6.0. I have to update to use .NET 8. But yeah, this is my simple proof it is cross-platform. Here I have the mostly quite the consistent same information when I run this on Windows. Like I have the runtime, the SDK version. The only SDK that I have is 60301 on this Ubuntu. I'm not running this Ubuntu SVM. This is nicely integrated to my Windows installation. I'm just leveraging the Windows subsystem for Linux, and I choose to install Ubuntu from the Windows Store. Yeah, I know that this needs to be updated, but you don't have to see wait for the updated process. Just let me just do the updates. Okay, we have discussed a long intro. I'm afraid. Sorry for that. Long intro for project system. Don't forget to like and subscribe for this video. And still, I welcome your feedback. And you can contact me if you feel that it is okay to contact me directly. You can contact me on email, LinkedIn, or maybe some of you, my close friends, you can also contact me on my WhatsApp. But I prefer to have a conversation by email first if you just first time knowing me. Or you can contact me from comments on YouTube and LinkedIn. Feel free to add me as well. And I'll see you on next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you. Bye bye.